Scotland, England and Wales form a state, but that was not always the case. It was not until the Act of Union in 1701 that the United Kingdom was formed. There was one main reason for this. Scotland was more or less broke. England, Scotland? For many today the question does not even arise where the difference is. After all, everything is Great Britain, or the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, as the official name of the state is. But in fact the two countries were two separate kingdoms for several centuries. Even the Romans, who ruled England and Wales from 43 to around 440, were unable to penetrate to the far north of the island. Instead they built Hadrian's Wall, a fortification that sealed off their empire. On May 1st, 1701, Scotland and England formed the United Kingdom with the Act of Union, after both countries had been ruled by a king in personal union since 1603. Uniting both politically was controversial even then. Almost 45% of the Scottish MPs voted for the union, but the mood among the people was contrary. Nevertheless, with the Unification Act, the Parliament in Edinburgh was dissolved and the north of the island was henceforth co-governed from London. In return, Scotland sent representatives to the new joint House of Lords and Commons. Although the now vacant Scottish politicians had been promised all sorts of posts in the common capital, the reason for the merger seemed more of an economic nature. Scotland was more or less bankrupt at the beginning of the 18th century. The country's attempt to found its own trading colony in Central America with the Company of Scotland failed mercilessly and destroyed around a quarter of Scottish capital. Assaults by the rival Spaniards and several epidemics put an end to the colonial efforts. In the new common state, the Scots were now free to act. England paid reparation claims and allowed the North to maintain, among other things, its own education system and the Reformed Church. The Union Jack, actually Union flag, becomes a symbol of the Union early on. King James I had a first version introduced shortly after the Royal Personal Union in 1606. The flag is an overlay of the English cross of St. George and the Scottish cross of St. Andrew. In 1801 the Irish cross of St. Patrick was also added and the Union Jack got its current appearance. The Scots then found it difficult to accept the business of government from London. It was not until the British Prime Minister Tony Blair that they granted them more sovereignty in 1998. Under his administration, the Edinburgh Parliament was revived, and since then it has regained a number of rights, even if it's not enough. I'll see you in my next video. Auf Wiedersehen.